There are 45 NES games on the Nintendo Switch Online service at this point. That's a heck of a lot of games when it comes to it. And when we look at it, some of those games are great games, fantastic games, and some of those games, my gosh, they're horrible. And so what we've done here is we've taken a tier list, and there's a lot of tier lists, videos going on out there of different YouTube personalities, and so we're going to do one on the Nintendo Entertainment System games on the Nintendo Switch Online service that you get for free once you pay for the service. So I guess it's not technically free if you're paying for it. But regardless, you get 45 games, and this tier list is going to rank them from S tier all the way down to D tier, one by one. So our first game we're going to pick, it's going to be Tecmo Bowl. The Tecmo Bowl is one of the most classic, iconic football games on the Nintendo Entertainment System, but I'm not that big of a sports guy, and so when it comes to it, it's automatically not going to be S tier just because of that. And it's not an NBA type jam type game, so it can't be an A tier either. And so we're looking at the bottom 3 tiers for me. And so for this, I did load it up. I went through it again a little bit, and it's not a bad sports game. It's a pretty decent, for its time, football game. And so we're going to knock it straight here in the B tier. It's not a bad game. Let's see how we can go from here. Our next one is going to be tennis. NES Tennis. Whew. It is not as good as the football game. Off the bat. It's not as complex. It's very simple. And I like tennis games. I love Mario Tennis. I like playing actual tennis when it comes to that. Ping pong, which isn't really tennis, but it's so close. And so this game just doesn't live up to my tennis experiences when it comes to it. So tennis is going to go down here in the C tier. Our next game, Super Mario Bros. 1. And talk about an iconic game. This is the first game that we ever got on our Nintendo Entertainment System. We got this for Christmas along with Sesame Street ABC, and I played this game to pieces, and I still play it from time to time. Just load up and go through it. It's the only game I've ever tried speed runs at, and I'm nowhere near world records, and I'll never be there. I think I got down like 10 minutes, which was my personal best, but I love this game. It's an iconic game. It's where the entire Mario series came from. That's an S tier game, no questions asked. Our next one, Super Mario Bros. 3. This is potentially the most perfect Mario game out there. It took everything that was great about Mario 1, perfected it, great level design, wonderful costumes. It revolutionized what a 2D game could be, and it set Mario up to be the titan of the video game industry that it is. Definitely an S tier of a game. Next one, we have Mario's counterpart, which is going to be The Legend of Zelda, the first one. Now, Legend of Zelda, as you look back at it in retrospect, it's a little bit of a rougher game to play because there's so much in it that doesn't tell you where to go, what to get. It's very open-ended, very open world, and I like that, but at the same time, it can get a little confusing at some points. However, the entire Zelda series spawned out of this game, and we wouldn't have anywhere near what we have on adventure games in general if it wasn't for The Legend of Zelda. And so it's a little rough around the edges. However, because of its iconic status, and I do actually enjoy going back and playing it sometimes, it's also going to stay at an S tier. Our next one, a little puzzle game called Yoshi. Now Yoshi, I'll admit, we used to rent this game fairly often when I was a kid. It was one of our favorite puzzle games. It wasn't like the perfect puzzle game, but it was definitely one that we could spend a lot of hours on. We play a lot. It's well crafted. It's not really complex, but it's great, especially if you're playing multiplayer with a friend or a family member when it comes to that. So Yoshi, it's definitely an A tier game. Our next one is a game called Gradius. Now I'll admit, when I was a kid, I never actually got to have Gradius, and I never even heard of it either. And so I did load it up, of course, when I got to download it for Nintendo Switch Online, and it plays very much like a game I had growing up called Life Force. And Life Force I did love. It was a great game, side-scrolling shooting game when it came to within a rocket ship. It's well designed. I like it. I don't have the memories to go along with it, so it's definitely not S tier for me. It's well crafted. It could be an A tier if I had the memories to go along with it, but for our point and for my opinion, it's going to be a B tier game. Next one, we have Ice Climber. Good lord, this game is just a boring game to me. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. I don't even like the characters. When they reappeared on Super Smash Bros., all the way back to Melee, I tried them out. I've never liked them. It's sort of a pointless game. It's between C and D on this one, and I hate to put it below tennis, but I'm more likely to play tennis than I am Ice Climber. So Ice Climber is going to be our first D tier game for me. Speaking of ice, our next one is Ice Hockey. This is one of the worst sports games on the service. and we're just going to knock it all the way down to D tier. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that one. I never enjoyed it. Next one we have the original, just Mario Brothers. Now this is a great arcade game when it came to multiplayer, battling it out, hitting the turtles over. However, this game is included in the Super Mario Bros. 3 as a multiplayer challenge. And so it's almost a pointless addition to the Nintendo Switch service. And my gosh, this one's probably going to go down to a C tier. It's not a bad game, but I can't first see myself ever playing it. Our next one, Pro Wrestling. Now, Pro Wrestling, I never was a huge fan of it growing up. I never watched it a whole lot, and honestly never played a game. I've played some wrestling games, but this was never one that I played. And so when we look at it, this one is probably going to make its way all the way down to D tier as well, because I gave it a try. It was difficult to get the controls down. Not a lot of fun in my book. Next we have River City Ransom. River City Ransom, it's very much just a side-scrolling beat-em-ups game. And I played it growing up, and it was a fun game. But when it came to the side-scrolling beat-em-ups, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was always like the golden standard, and none of the other ones really ever stood up to that, and for me anyway. And so when it comes to River City Ransom, we're gonna stick it right here in B tier. Not a bad game, but not a great game. Next one we have is Soccer, and Soccer I gave it a try, and it plays okay. That's as good as you can say. It plays okay. I'm not gonna knock it down to D tier because I could have some fun with this one, but it's definitely not one of the upper tier games. I really don't know why they put so many sports games, like NES sports games, on this service, because most people, when they think of their childhood of NES, sports games are not the thing that comes to mind. It's usually the adventure games or the action games or the puzzle games. Sports games, they tend to upgrade over the years, and you just sort of go with those updated games, and you tend to forget some of the older ones. Next up, we have a Balloon Fight. Now, Balloon Fight, it was a fun game. It's more fun when you have multiplayer, but it's a fun game in and of itself. One you're going to go back to a lot? Probably not. It's definitely not a bad game. It's going to be It's going to be smack dab in the middle at a B tier. As far as some of the classic ones go, like arcade classics, it's pretty one of the higher ones when it comes to that. Oh my gosh, our next one, it defined part of my childhood. Dr. Mario. This still defines part of my adulthood. This is one of my all-time favorite games. It is my favorite puzzle game. When it comes to puzzle, Tetris is great and all, and Tetris Attack is great and all as well. But Dr. Mario, this was the definition of what a puzzle game could be and should be. The number of hours that me and my brother put in on this game growing up, it's immense. And even as an adult, I still love going back and playing it. I'm a little sad for the NES online service, because you can't just play with random people. You have to have a friend online to play the game. It's sometimes hard to get matched up with someone to play Dr. Mario online, but my gosh, it is one of the best NES games, hands down. Definitely S tier. All right, our next one is going to be Excite Bike. Now I'm going to actually throw this in with the Excite Bike Versus as well, because they released that later on down the road. But Excite Bike, this was an iconic motorcycle game. Wonderful to play. Even more fun with the verses because you can actually challenge somebody. The mechanics are fun. It's just a really fun arcade game. S tier, that's pushing it, but A tier for just a really great game. It definitely falls in the A tier for that. Next up, we have a game that I have tried almost my entire life to love, and I just have never been able to advance in it. And that is going to be Ghosts and Goblins. I love the imagery of this game. I love the idea of this game. The game looks awesome in my opinion. It looks like fun, and I have a little bit of fun with it, but I can't ever get past like level 2. It is one of the most difficult NES games out there. I would put it in A tier because I like everything about it, but I can't even experience 80% of the game because I can't even ever get to it. So this is going to have to fall into B tier just because of the difficulty of the game, which is a shame because I would love to play this game way more than I ever get to play it. Our next one, baseball. Oh my gosh, baseball. This is not a fun baseball game. There are way better baseball games on the NES itself, but especially as you continue up through the years of systems, this baseball game is meaningless to play at this point. Baseball falls into D tier. Our next one, the original Donkey Kong, or the classic Donkey Kong. This would be the arcade version of Donkey Kong. And when it comes to arcade games, this is one of the better ones they put on the NES Classics, or not NES Classic, the NES Online for the Switch. It's definitely one of the better ones. I have a lot of memories of playing this growing up. We had it on the NES. I have memories of playing it at the arcade. When me and my wife were engaged, she lived in an apartment complex, and within that they actually had Donkey Kong set up in one of the machines. And there were some points where I did put several hours into that, and I did have to high score to the apartment complex, but there wasn't a lot of competition. But it's a really great game, and it's one of the best arcade games of all time. And so S tier, I don't play it that much to say it's up there with like Zelda or Mario Brothers, but it is definitely a tier game. Next, the original Double Dragon. Now, Double Dragon, once again, I put in the same idea of River City Ransom. Ninja Turtles was the golden standard for beat 'em ups in our household, and so Double Dragon is going to be smack dab in the middle with a B tier. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and find a Double Dragon 2, because I know it's in here. There it is, Double Dragon 2. This falls into the exact same category. It's a fun game. I like it, but it's nowhere near golden standard, and I wouldn't even say it's a game I'm going to come back to really often. So it's going to be a B tier game as well. NES Open, basically the first version of Mario Golf. Mario Golf has gotten better throughout the years, and NES Opens, it's not bad, but I'm not going to find myself going back and ever playing this one. There's actually which is surprising on here, just simply golf on the NES, which is the original sports games that would go along with soccer and pro wrestling and tennis. I actually find the golf game a lot more fun than this one. This one's not bad. It's got all the Mario characters in it, and so that's probably why it's on here. But it's gonna be a C tier game for my list. Our next one here is Solomon's Key. Oh my gosh, Solomon's Key! Talk about a fantastic puzzle game. This is one that it did get a sequel, Fire and Ice, and me and my brother, we played through both Solomon Key and Fire and Ice, and they're some of the best puzzle games out there. They stand the test of time as far as a game you'd want to go back and play. There's not a lot of games like this out there. Just a very interesting, very unique puzzle game. It's not an S tier, but it's definitely an A tier game. Our next one, Dodgeball. Dodgeball. I do love real Dodgeball, but not real Dodgeball. It takes some of the fun out of, dodging the ball. And so within that, it's definitely not a higher tier game. It's not the worst game. It's not a D tier, but it's below average. And so we're going to put it at a C tier game. Next one, Mighty Bomb Jack. I had never played this game growing up. I had never heard of this game. It came out on the NES Online. I tried this game. I did not have fun with this game, and I don't really understand how most people would like this game. It's just not a enjoyable game to play. It's confusing and not very fun. And so when it comes to where this belongs, this is going to be our first, one of our first non-sports game. I guess Ice Climber was the first one, but our first non-sports games to really grace the D tier when it comes to it. Our next one is something called City Connection. This is another one that I had never played up until getting this NES Online service. And as I played it, it was another confusing game. I'll admit that. However, it wasn't so confusing that you couldn't have any fun with it. It's not really a racing game. It's more like just a driving game. It is a platform driving game. It's interesting. It's not a D tier, but it's not above a C. It's going to be a C tier game. Our next one, Metroid. Now, Metroid, it's a pretty iconic game. It's one of Nintendo's independent properties. It's one of their main known ones here, and it's a good game. Is it my favorite Metroid? Nowhere near my favorite Metroid. There are even better Metroid clones out there when it comes to that. And so some people might put it as S tier just simply because it is one of Nintendo's main franchises. But for me, it's definitely not S tier. It would almost be somewhere between A and B, but we're going to put it in A just because I do have some good memories of Metroid. Next is going to be Lolo. Now, Lolo was a puzzle game that was overhead, sort of like, not really like Solomon's Key. It was more along the lines of like the viewpoint of Legend of Zelda, but it was just a one-room puzzle game. And this is a series that we rented from our local video store constantly. There was Lolo 1, 2, and 3. We played all of them. Very complicated games as you get into them, and as you progress, You work your way through the castle. I think you're trying to save Lala, I believe is the princess's name. You're Lolo, you're trying to save Lala. And as you play through the game, the puzzles get far, far more complex. And some of them took us hours and hours, if not days and days, to finally try to crack the puzzle. It's extremely well designed. It is one of the best puzzle games on the NES and one of the best puzzle games of its style throughout all systems. I'm surprised this game has never got a remake. I'm surprised this game has never been continued. There were 3 parts on the NES. It was a great series, and we're actually going to knock this one all the way up to S tier because I have some fantastic memories on it, and it is an extremely well designed puzzle game. So Lolo is going to be moving up to all the way to S tier. Ninja Gaiden. Ninja Gaiden. It's always sort of reminded me of Contra a little bit, but just without the guns. More like Contra with your sword, or katana, I guess. And I like this game. I like it fine. Is it one of my favorite games? It's not one of my favorites. We're going to throw it in B tier just because it was never that iconic to us. Which, speaking of, why is Contra not on this? Contra should be one of the core games on here. Or Super C at least. Probably not Contra Force, but at least Super C should be on this tier thing for NES Online. But they prefer to put things on there like tennis. Alright, so Wario's Woods is next. Now, Wario's Woods was not a game that we had growing up, but it's a game I've played throughout the years. And it's a puzzle game, and it's a fun puzzle game, but it's not iconic. It's not one you want to go back to. It's not one you're ever going to invite friends over. It's not even one you would probably load up on NES Online to play. This is going to be a C tier game, just simply because it's not a game you're going to want to go back and play very often. Blaster Master. Alright, now Blaster Master. We rented this game a lot growing up as well. I didn't actually get to own this game until I was an adult, and I've never beaten the game. I've gotten pretty far in it. I've always loved that you actually got to get out of your little tank and explore the world that way. And it had, of course, had the overhead view, almost Zelda-ish style, as you got to play through the game. It's a very complex game, very unique game. It's going to fall into the A tier, because it's extremely well designed, and I know there's a remake out there too. I've never played the remake. Might have to go try that at some point. Alright, our next one of the most controversial of the series, Zelda-2, The Adventures of Link. Now, I'm not going to lie, this is one of my all-time favorite Zelda games, and I think it's actually better than Zelda 1. And I think it's better than most of the Zelda games. That's why it's one of my all-time favorite Zelda. It would almost seems to me, as I've played through it, almost reminds me of current day what the Dark Souls series has become. And so it almost feels like Dark Souls is a continuation of what Zelda 2 began all those years ago. It's a fantastic game. It brings in the entire upgrade system when it comes to your health, your magic, your life. It plays sort of like, it has RPG elements, but it has one of the best side scrollers on the entire system. It is a fantastic game, and it belongs nowhere short of S tier. Alright, let's see. Kirby's Adventure. This was the first Kirby game that I ever played. We didn't get a Game Boy until after Kirby's Adventure had already come out. And so Kirby's Adventure was our first experience with Kirby. And within that, it was a great game. I still like Kirby. As a whole, he's a great character when it comes to like Super Smash Bros. And stuff. Current Kirby games, I don't find myself ever wanting to play them. This game here, though, I have a lot of memories with it. It was one of the best NES games at the time, but it didn't age as well as some of the other ones, so I'm going to stick it in A tier. Alright, our next one is Super Mario Bros. 2. Somewhat what people call the black sheep of the family, but for me, Super Mario Bros. 2 was one of my all-time favorites as a kid. Me and my dad would play this game all the time, and it was never one of his favorites, but for me, I love the game, and anyone who didn't play or beat the entire game as Princess Peach is probably just lying to you, because that whole hover mechanism, you can't beat it. And so Super Mario Bros. 2, fantastic game, and I'm well aware it's a Doki Doki Panic. It's not the real Super Mario Bros. 2. That doesn't matter. This game was fantastic. It was beautiful to look at. An extremely well designed game. Of all 3 Mario games on the NES, if I'm only going to go back and replay one of them, this is actually the one I'm most likely to replay, and I play it through ever so often. Our next one, Kid Icarus. Kid Icarus, it's a fine game. I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's okay. It's better than what I expected. I didn't get to play it growing up. I didn't play it till the service. It's okay. B tier it is. Startropics. Now, Startropics, a lot of people have a fond memory of. I had it as a kid. I never really liked it a whole lot. I always liked the fantasy elements of games like Zelda. I always liked the the action of that. And when it came to Startropics, it was like you were an ordinary boy. You had a yo-yo, things like that. I know you're exploring on an island, and there's some supernatural things going on, but it just never appealed to me. And I know some people, they love the game, but I'm going to have to stick it down in C tier because I never could ever get involved in that game. I never enjoyed it a whole lot. Punch-Out! Punch-Out was a game that, we played it a little bit. It was a boxing game. It's definitely not down here with the rest of the sports games, by no means. And it's actually one you can go back and you can play and have some fun on. And so we're going to stick it in B tier. And so our next game is going to be something called Star Soldier. Now, Star Soldier was another one the NES online service sort of hit me with, as I never played before. But as I experimented with it and as I played it, it's very much of a over-the-top shooter game within your starship. And once again, why bring this game over when there's so many other great over-the-top starship games? For example, Guardian Legend. Guardian Legend was a fantastic game growing up as a kid. Has an adventure mode with it, some highly imaginative aliens and creatures. And so when you have that game on the NES, this game tends to really fall short. And so we're going to stick it down here in, I can't stick it down in C category. We're going to stick it up here in B. We're going to stick it in B. All right. Our next one here. Let's see. We have Super Mario Brothers: The Lost Levels. Oh, good Lord. I do hate this game. D tier. I can't stick it in D tier just because it is Mario, and it has, it's not I can't say it's not a bad game. It is a bad game. It's poorly designed. It's way too hard. If this was our Super Mario Brothers 2 that we got in the United States, we would have never played it, and the Mario franchise would have been hindered, in my opinion. But it is Mario, and so D tier seems a little harsh for a Mario game. Ooh, I actually stuck it there. And so we're going to put Mario Lost Levels in the C tier, just simply because some people can get some enjoyment out of that game. Our next one, Kookoo Land. I never played this until we got the Switch Online system, and I couldn't figure it out. I gave it a significant amount of time. You're just a little creature, and you spin around, and you hit these coins. You can shoot your sound waves out. I don't understand how to play the game. I don't understand what the point of the game is. I don't think there's any sort of story to go along with the game. D tier is where that game belongs. Donkey Kong Jr. Donkey Kong Jr. It's not as good as the original, but it's not a bad game. We're going to stick it right here in B tier. Next we have City Connection. I thought I already did City Connection. Did I do one instead? Oh my gosh, I got City Connection and Twin B mixed up. Oh my gosh, see, there's Twin B right there. See how the covers are pretty similar? It's too small on my screen. So I guess this is for City Connection. We've already done City Connection, so we know it belongs there. And so we'll go back and we'll talk about Twin B for a second. Twin B, it's a over-the-top shooter game, pretty similar to Star Soldier. I can't put Star Soldier up there and Twin B down here, so we're going to put Twin B on the same level as Star Soldier. Our next one. And that one, it says, I can't see where it says. I think it says volleyball. That definitely says volleyball. Volleyball, there are way better volleyball games when it came to the Super Nintendo. What's the Super Nintendo? I don't know. There was a better volleyball game growing up, and this was not the one that we enjoyed. I tried playing this one, and it's not fun. D tier. All right, Donkey Kong 3. Let's see. Now that one there. It's not a bad game. I think all the Donkey Kongs are pretty much the same. Obviously, they're not the same game. They're very much different concepts. But as far as enjoyability, all Donkey Kongs are pretty much the same. Action games, arcade games. They're enjoyable. So we're gonna stick it there. And while we're at it, let's. I did put Donkey Kong. I guess the first one was an A. I agree with that. I'll stick with what my opinion was. I cannot change it once it has been placed upon a tier. And our final one, here we go, Wrecking Crew. Wrecking Crew. It's okay. I don't like it, admittedly. I don't hate it. It's just an okay game. I'd never find myself playing it. I can't imagine why anybody would go out of their way to play it. But it's not a horrible game. It's just going to be stuck here in C tier. And so that's going to wrap up our NES online games for the Nintendo Switch Online service. As we look at it, they have given us at this point 6, in my opinion, 6 S tier games, which that's pretty good. I mean, these are some of the most iconic games on the NES system. You got all the Marios, you got all the Zeldas, you got Dr. Mario, you got Lolo. All of those are wonderful S tier games. There, are of course some more that could come onto the system at a later point that could equal the S tier game level. But for right now, that's pretty good. You get 6 A tier, which are fantastic games. We also have there are 7 S tier games. I counted wrong. And so there are also 7 A tier games. You got some great ones on there. You got Yoshi, Excite Bike. You watched the video. I don't have to go through all the ones that I've already put on there. But those are great games. Those are games I could see myself going back and playing again at some point with a friend, with a family member. Those are great games. I like all those games. B tier, these are games I enjoyed. I wouldn't be opposed to playing them again, but I don't find myself wanting to go out of my way to play these games. They're just sort of there. They're good games, but they're not ones I want to play a lot. And then of course have the C tier, the games that I don't want to play very often, but I can't, or really ever. But I can't say they're bad games. They're just games. And of course the D tier, the D tier games, I don't want to play. That's just simple as that. If someone suggested to play these games, I would actually say no. That's not games that I want to play. So, but that's not bad. I mean, if you have 7 S tier, 7 A tier, that's 14 top tier games, in my opinion, that are on the NES online system. And hopefully more games will come that are great, and maybe one day they'll extend it into the Super Nintendo or the Game Boy games. Probably won't venture into the N64 or GameCube, but that'd be fantastic if we start getting some of the Super Nintendo and Game Boy games. I would love the system so much more. As more NES games get released, we might do an updated tier list, but it'd have to be several more games. But I hope you enjoyed the tier list, and thank you for tuning in. Be sure you like and subscribe, and check out the rest of the videos. Have a great day. Bye-bye.